I think, there's one type of person that is not susceptible to cults and coercions and cons, and that is people that are just actually perfectly happy with their lives. And I usually think of it as people that are satisfied with living like a small, quiet life. And they're just like, that's just what they want. Like a job that they go to that pays enough money, a spouse, some children, the basic easy life. And I don't understand those people at all, because that's definitely not me. But I think those people are not susceptible to cults, because cults weaponize your discontent. And also, spaces of personal transformation is where predators show up to abuse you. So if you're not like trying to turn yourself into something new, you're not going to have those opportunities. Thank you for listening to my book. And the absolutely should give you pause. And many cult scholars have written about it. And I may be the first one to call Stephen Hassan out for calling himself the cult expert. But naming yourself the is like, that's the sacred assumption, which is my step 2, is we are the way, right? And every cult is promising you ultimately that they are the way, the truth, and the light. And their path is going to get you to salvation after some space travel. And so, yeah, naming yourself the, right? I always said, like, who died and made you the Church of Christ? Don't say Jesus. And this is why in every rebrand new channel that TikTok forces me to make, like, you never see me use the in front of Knitting Cult Lady. I think, like, my one example is like the U.S. Army, the U.S. Marine Corps, right? Because those are the only ones. But with the Five Eye countries, right? 5 English sharing, information sharing countries, I'm telling you that the United States and the UK were cultier than the Canada, the Australia, or the New Zealand. Right? And it's just, this is the promise of cults, is that you are superior. You are special. And this is why we have a lot of "you're not special" talk on my channels. Like, you're unique. You're a valid individual just as you are, but you're not special. And one of the reasons people go cult hopping is they want to feel special. Oh, of course, the CIA is culty. Oh, yes. I do think that the CIA is culty. It's also full of Mormons. The FBI is full of Catholics. CIA loves Mormons because they're easy to get background checks for, and they speak multiple languages. Same reason the Army intelligence liked me. Look at the color of this yarn. It looks too yellow on tube, but it's this color that you're seeing on TikTok. I'm going to make the best neon sweater out of it. I told you to tell them not to accept a jet from Qatar. What do you want from me? It's obviously only a thing that silly koalas would do. But you're a president. Hey, it's not my fault. I didn't vote for him. He's a Republican. Yeah, and it's funny. Okay, so the military being a cult, right? First essay that I published was called "I Escaped the Cult, but I Couldn't Escape the Cult Mentality." It's published in Narratively magazine. And I say this line at the end because I'm comparing 9/11, my crack in the brainwashing and the cult, and then soldiers being eulogized overseas and sort of my crack in the brainwashing with the military. And at the end, I'm like, veterans always ask me why I escaped one cult only to join another one. And then the male, like, senior editor was like, crossed it out and was like, no veteran would ever say this. He was very much not a veteran. I must have pushed back because it got published with that line in it. And it's true. Like, every time, like 50% of the time, veterans are like, we always joke about it being a cult. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just the person that wrote it down. I'm just the first person that wrote a book actually comparing military indoctrination to cult indoctrination. But like, we all know it is. And that's the conversation we don't want to have in society, honestly, is that we just ask 1% of our country to be in a cult, which harms them, in order to quote unquote protect us. And then we just kind of throw them away afterwards. Speaking of which, the Republicans who repeatedly promised not to touch Medicaid, the so-called third rail of politics, are doing what? Touching Medicaid? Yeah. The hypocrisy. It's a lot. It's a lot-cracy. I think I'm going to have to put in the musical, "Give me back my childhood, it was mine first." So yeah, I wrote down words for I think every concept of the musical. I can't find that one of these silver hooks. So we're gonna have to take it off of something else. But I did put like 25 earrings in my shop or something. So why a musical? Okay. So I grew up in the cult called the Children of God, and that's the cult that like Joaquin and River Phoenix were from. And we started thinking about the musical in December. We were the performance cult, right? Cults are always about labor. Cults are organized crime. They always have a product that they're selling you. We sold entertainment. We produced Joaquin and River Phoenix and Rose McGowan and Daniela Mestenak-Young. We performed twice at the White House and once for the president of Brazil. We wrote a marching song for Marcos of the Philippines that was played every hour on national television. We were great. So recently I went to Hamilton with Mr. Knitting Cult Lady. And as we were like, as soon as we sat down, I was just like, oh, I have to be on this stage. Like this is the culmination of my cult baby life. And then, because I'm not a Broadway trained actress or dancer, I was like, well, the best way for me to get on a Broadway stage is for me to write a musical. And so there I was one post-Christmas December night with a good bottle of Napa wine, talking to my Mr. Knitting Cult Lady was out doing like a happy hour with someone. And I was talking with my Brazilian host daughter, who's going to graduate as a surgeon next year, and telling her, like, I don't know if the musical is going to be like the Book of Mormon, but for all cult babies, or if it's going to be women soldiers on the stage. And then I was like, Daniela, it's both. It's always both. And so that night, me and one bottle of Napa wine and one 24-year-old Brazilian woman birthed the concept of Uncultured, the Cult Baby musical. And as soon as I started talking about it to you all, like literally, not only is everyone like, take my money, make this a thing, but like my whole cult baby audience has been like, when can we audition? Can I write songs for you? I mean, the amount of free Mormon music labor that I'm like batting away has been a lot because I don't take free labor. And that's what made me realize that I am writing this for everyone, for like all the cult babies to act out their trauma, because one part for all children in cults, all adults in cults as well, is performance, right? You're always performing. You're not really you. It's a pseudo personality. So I'm making this person some circular logic earrings, and they didn't customize them. So usually I just send the lavender ones because that's what's in the picture. But they did order silver scrunchies, hair control scrunchies. So I just decided to make them silver earrings because my silver earrings are fun. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I'm definitely not in the, like, I just literally wrote down my brain dump of the script after talking about it to you all for like the last 5 months. And we'll see. We'll see. There might be an interested investor. I'm going to be in New York in July with my 22 years younger than me, 16-year-old sibling who plays 8 instruments and wants to be a Broadway actor and would be a perfect lieutenant for the play. We're going to go see Chicago, and the play is definitely going to have a little Cell Block 6 tango parody. So there will be more inspiration to come. And I'm doing it what's called a pastiche, which is like taking a bunch of lines from other, not just musicals, but songs, lots of Swift songs. But also because cults are always plagiarizing and lying to you, and the product is never real. Over here we have Position to Live with Narc Mom and the Gaslighting at Home. Yeah, you know what? If you have lived under authoritarianism, whether that was like a 1-1 cult, an abusive relationship, a single family cult, or like grew up in a cult like me, or like grew up in the former USSR, right? Like you're really triggered right now. What's happening is very, very obvious to us. There's a reason I'm going to come out with a 5-year research book on cults and MAGA at the 1-year anniversary of his second presidency. But I want to remind you that even as you are triggered, you have the skills to survive this because you already have before. And you have skills that will be important to people around you. You know, dissociation, if you're doing it when you're not in danger, you know, therapy can help with that. But if you're doing it to get through hard times, like that's a tool. Laughing when I was deployed to Bagram. I was winning the marathon that we had out there on 2 hours of sleep and not enough training and not enough food. And I was realizing, you know, oh, they're going to interview me. There's going to be articles. And I'm just like, people are going to be like, how did you do it? And I just kind of laugh at the idea of 3 hours and 12 minutes being hard. Like, yeah, I could do hard stuff for 3 hours and 12 minutes. And that was before I did 30 hours of labor. And then my child didn't breathe for 7 minutes. Fun times. Wait, oh no. I thought I had another silvery one. It was a different kind, but I don't. I'm going to send this one because it's cute. Yeah, it was not fun. And it was like emergency labor the whole time. And I did 12 hours of it with no medication because I might have gone a little into hypnobirthing cults. And yeah. Tell you what, 25-minute contractions that are doing absolutely nothing for you are not fun. And it was funny because I went into childbirth being like, whatever, I competitively run marathons, like, I'll be fine. And then my first marathon I did after I had a baby, I was like, 4 hours. whatever. I can always shit talk myself. Also, this one time I got pregnant on mile 18 of a marathon. So there I was. Mr. Knitting Cult Lady is in Green Platoon, which is like the special forces training for the special operations helicopters. And we are trying for a knitting cult baby, and he has very limited time off. And the app says like it has to be, in these 2 days or whatever, right? Which is the only way you end up doing relations the night before you're trying to run a 3-hour marathon. So there I am. Everything's going fine. And I know when I say like all of a sudden at mile 18, every bit of energy from my body just drained. I know that sounds like, well, yeah, mile 18. Like I was in physical condition to pretty easily run a 3-hour marathon. I was going to try to go for a 2:45 and do the Olympic trials. But then instead I decided to have a knitting cult baby. So literally everything's kind of going fine. Mile 18 of the marathon all of a sudden. And Mr. Knitting Cult Lady's standing there to give me a bottle of water and just cheer me on. And I was like, you have to do it with me. You have to run the rest with me. I can't do it. And so he, like a boss, ran 9 miles with me. He had already run 5 miles that morning. And I finished the marathon in about 3.5 hours, not in 3 hours and nothing minutes. And then 1 month later, on Mother's Day, Mr. Knitting Cult Lady told me I was pregnant. And there you have it. And I've talked to doctors and they're like, yeah, I mean, the largest energy drain a woman will ever experience is the moment when the egg is implanting. But most women don't know the exact time when they got pregnant. So they were just like, oh, I was tired. I was sick that day. I was, everyone who's been through a first trimester of pregnancy understands how tired you get. So that's my, how I got pregnant at mile 18 of a marathon story. Hashtag stories not in the book. Now you know. These are the Circular Logic earrings. These earrings that I'm wearing are also in my shop. Definitely on TikTok. I think on YouTube. Not the best with YouTube. Cult of the UN. I hadn't still run for about 3 years now. I have just started a little bit with Knitting Cult Baby running. Not correction. In the last 3 years, once a year, I run 1 mile as fast as I can with Knitting Cult Baby in a race that she does. That's also the only time of year that she runs. And she always gets like third. She always like places. And I'm always like, if you would just train. But that was the same thing with me. I never trained as hard as I raced. I ran 60 to 100 miles a week. Like I trained. At one point, I wanted to run across America. We're talking about doing that when Mr. Cult Lady retired. We're like, one of us is running and the other one is driving the RV. And the next day, the other one is running and the other one is driving the RV. I never, ever would have driven that 44-foot motorhome that we ended up in. But for Mr. Knitting Cult Lady, who was driving a 80-foot Chinook for 14 years in the craziest kinds of conditions, just watching someone whip around a 44-foot motorhome and back it up. Or he did this like fruit stand interdiction in Wisconsin. I was like, fruit stand. And he was like, 4 lanes of traffic pulled over. And then I had the second best tomato of my life. The best tomato was in Turkey. Okay, so a lot of the earrings are light. Like these are not the lightest just because the tassels are big. They seem light to me. The Circular Logic ones are pretty light because they're just bangles wrapped in yarn. I did know I was having a girl. At first, I wanted to not find out, but then I was like, but I'm going to want to do, I'm artistic. I'm going to want to do stuff. And we really wanted a girl. We had the same name picked out separately. And anyways, and so then found out we were having a girl. And so then Mr. Knitting Cult Lady with his budding feminism would like walk into baby stores and he would be like, hey, can you point me to the pink helicopter section, please? And what these women who work there would be like, anyway, I did a mural on her wall that was like, there was a tree with flowers, like a normal baby mural. And then we had a cartoon helicopter and, Air Force giving cover overhead, like air assault, which is what we both did for many years, plan air assault missions. I was just in charge of how to mess them up. I made these. I'm waiting on silk. Wait, no, I found hooks. All right. You want pink? Okay. So, just as crazy as possible. It's funny because as soon as I started putting tassels on the circular earrings, people are like, can't get enough of them. And I'm like, okay, I thought the Circular Logic earrings were too crazy for people, but apparently they just weren't wacky enough. I made the first ones of these and my amazing Brazilian housekeeper walked in and she was just like, those are mine now. She's the model that you see in the photos too. Thank you for listening to Uncultured. Y'all, I finished Culting of America. And I had been thinking of it as a 2.5-year project, right? 2.5 years ago, I sat down here and on TikTok and I was like, okay, I'm starting to write this book. But when I saw the 36-page bibliography that I paid someone else to do for me, I was like, oh no. This book has been a 5-year project. It includes my master's degree, but it's also kind of been like a 25-year project. Or not 25. I'm about to be 38. I was 22 when I really started studying cults, but also 38 years because it's my whole, yeah. It's basically everything I know about cults. And it's my honorary PhD from myself. You can't go wrong with tassels, right? I love it so much. These ones. Oh, and the Knitting Cult baby. She doesn't like join me in my crafts very often because she's very into doing her own thing. But she joined me in making earrings. There's one, I think, in my TikTok shop that's a Knitting Cult baby edition. And she just wants it to be KCB edition. And she mixed silver and gold in a cool way that I wouldn't have done. Anyway, my 9-year-old made these. Yeah, it really is. It is like everything that I know about cults in a book, minus the things that my co-writer cut out. And also, hopefully, my channel is going to be less chaotic now because I'm going to try to play a little bit more by their rules. And you can't sell on lives, apparently. They created a tool for it, but it's not intuitive to use. So that was a big reason of why I kept getting kicked off. But it was worth it because I made enough money to publish on Culting of America. Yeah, a lot of times when people tell me that what you said, like when they had to do research on cults in college or took a sociology class or whatever, they stopped being religious. For me, it was, I mean, I was never religious. I don't think I was ever religious. Like once in a while, I would try to like get the Holy Spirit and like get into it just because it's easier to go along. I just never could. But and then when I left the cult, I was just like, I'm not gonna think about religion. And I remember thinking to myself, I remember thinking like, when I'm 19 and I have my whole life together, I'll like go sit in the mountains for 3 days and I'll decide if I'm religious. And then by the time I was 19, obviously my life was not together, but I was also very much an atheist. But I had taken this class on Mexican history and learned about I'm not going to pull it up, the name of their god, Quetzalcoatl, maybe? Anyways, virgin birth, gone, promised to come back. And I was like, no way. Like with no connection to Christianity. And this is when I started thinking, freshman year, right? Like about like, how do you make a god? Right. And if you read Uncultured, I talk about doing this paper in college where I talk about how you create a god in a work of literature. And I compare Genesis and Homer's Odyssey. Right. And just last month when I went to Dallas, I like handed the professor my chapter 1 of Culting of America, which is the road to deification, or has a section on the road to deification, like from charismatic leader to cult leader, they go through a process of turning themselves into gods. And I have been thinking about this since I was 18 years old. 20 years. That is 20 years. Oh, okay. Yeah, we want to come to your graduation.
Okay. I'm sure it must be a cold. It's like we have a crop.
Yeah, I pick up is 1:45, so.
Yep, got it.
It's different every day, don't worry. We're not going to track our patterns. Oh, I'm glad you're coming to First Book Club. It's today, though. It's not tomorrow. I hope you're still here. It's today. It's tonight, 6:30. I'm going to keep having to remind myself that all day long because I forget, and then I remember at 6 o'clock. We are a very neurospicy family, so we have like Monday, Monday, Taco Tuesday. We call it whatever Wednesday, but it is literally always Mr. Knitting Coat Lady air fries a chicken, and I make Mom's iconic salad and some sort of something with it. All right, okay. Now we made these. Now we're going to. How many people are in Cult Book Club? I feel like 100 people must be signed up for it because it's like my $10 Patreon level, and then you just drop in when you drop in. Plus, you get access to like Un-American and my other stuff. But usually it's a discussion of about 8 to 10 people. So, yeah, deification does happen of celebrity, and I think also like Hollywood is kind of a cult, and the sacred assumption is like fame is the end all be all, and everything can be sacrificed in pursuit of that. I think very specifically cults have to be groups, and cults are always exploiting labor. So this is why, like, obviously I'm a Swiftie. Obviously Taylor Swift has been deified, but I'm not in a group about Taylor Swift. Like, that's just an identity. And I hugely disagree that fan groups are inherently culty. Like, that's cult comes with coercion and manipulation and forced labor. Like, otherwise it's literally fan group. That's what it is. If it's not harming you, it's a fan group. And a leader, but the leader can be an idea. So, like, I think almost everything about defining cults is misunderstood in the popular culture. Yeah, we're not a fan of Knitting Cult Lady. This is not a group. And I instinctively am not trying to build a group. Like, I think I'm part of a community, which is the deconstruction community. And maybe there's kind of like a Knitting Cult Lady community. But actually, one of the things, so before I could get on here and become a content creator, I'm so glad we have that word, because I hate influencer, because it creeped me out. I was like, it's culty. I don't like it. So I sat and did my organizational psychologist thing and made a checklist. I call it it's a 20-point guru gotcha checklist about like everything that I find creepy and red flaggy about gurus and leaders. This is the toxic leader checklist, basically. And you'll get that at the end of Culting of America, which comes out on January 20th. And I always say, like, I did this to keep myself in check, right? And like also to just understand what I don't want to be. Just like I understood what kind of books I didn't want to write before I wrote one. And then part of it is like, I don't like the focus on me. I have good content because I have a lot of interesting, diverse experiences that don't often occur in one person. And because I read these books and I do this stuff and blah, blah, and I'm just like bringing it all together, right? But part of that was on purpose because I don't want to be deified. Difference between an expert and a guru is an expert can tell you exactly where all their stuff came from, at least broadly, right? And a guru was like touched by heaven and given, plus space travel. And so I didn't want that, and I don't want echo chambers. So I tried to, like, in the beginning, very like deliberately make sure that like at least 25% of my content and my videos are like me talking about other people's ideas, other people's work, or reading other people's books. And turns out I'm just good at curating an interesting space. But I also think it's funny because like when you're not a cult leader or when you're not a cult, you don't like ever have to respond to that. And I use myself as an example because as soon as you're in cult anything, as soon as you turn your critical eye on the one thing people like, they'll be like, wow, well, you're a cult leader. I don't have to explain why I'm not. The same way I don't have to explain that I'm not a dragon. And that's going to be my second children's book. I am not a dragon. It's going to be about bullying. And for Halloween, I'm going to be a psychological operation. And Mr. Knitting Cult Lady is going to be guerrilla warfare. Martial law was right there too, but I think guerrilla warfare will be funnier. So I'm doing like a knitted Carmen Sandiego. So I've already made red vest, fuzzy sleeves. And it's going to have like a detachable like skirt cape. So it looks like that jacket she wears. Then I have to find a red, I think it's a Panama hat. If anyone has one they want to donate to the cause, I've got to find one of those. And then I'm going to knit like I think this is how I'm going to teach myself freestyle crochet, but I'm going to just make a very like Latin American loud hat topper. And then I'm going to have a LED sign that says not a psyop. So that's my plan. Thanks. I made them. They're in my shop. One pair of them is in my shop. Someone said today that Jehovah's Witnesses bury the dead or baptize the dead. And they specifically said they're the only cult that does. And I was like, whoa, no, they're not. Mormons. I've never heard about it from Jehovah's Witnesses before, actually, which means nothing. Even other Jehovah's Witnesses are like, I've never heard of this. I'm like, that really means nothing in a cult that big, honestly. KCB has picked out her costume. I believe she's going to be Glinda. She does understand that Glinda's not the hero of the movie, but she's going to be Glinda, and her best friend's going to be Elphaba. Yeah, so I know the LDS baptizes the dead, and they've specifically been sued over it by Jewish people, and the courts have said that they can continue, I believe. So, yeah, it's not great. All right, quick break, and then we're going to sign books. Also, I put my red lipstick somewhere. Trixie, I'm clever this morning, and I should never do that because now I don't remember where it is. Okay, that is the packaging of crafts. But yeah, we're having fun with tassels. KCB's doing it with me now, so I'm gonna have to keep going. So if you would like some fringe belief earrings, check out our shop. And I'm teaching her about entrepreneurship because she made some. There's one pair listed, but I'm gonna list these ones today. And she's like, I'll get the money from them, right? And I was like, yep, minus a listing and advertising fee. She goes, what? Welcome to a job. Oh my God, she also gave me such a good part for the musical. So as I said, pastiche, we're taking other lines, right? It's part of a statement, just like the cult children are going to be puppets. So there's a song called Welcome to the Family Internacional. And it's like a Mormon missionary ceremony mixed with like military-esque tones, mixed with like NFL branching ceremony. And then at the end, so I was saying, Welcome to the Family Internacional. And she started going, Welcome to New York. It's like, oh, at the end, they're all gonna be marching around with their little flags. And they're gonna be like, Welcome to the family. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to the family. So now both my daughter and my adopted daughter have to get writing credits. Oh, yeah, got connected. Everything's good. This is the only account. I now have a new goal, which is to keep this one going till January 20th so we can tell everyone about the book. The last goal was to make as much money as possible, so it was working for me. Because, so that we could publish the book. And also because, one less thing to worry about. One less thing to worry about. One less thing to worry about. Military doesn't get involved in politics. That's why. Everything that's happening right now is politics. Nothing that is happening right now is against the laws of war. The military does not enforce things on American soil. I think there's lots of difference between a community and a group. One of them being that communities don't necessarily have like firmly defined memberships, while groups do. And I think as soon as you define who is a member, you've defined who's not a member. And even on your best groups, that's an us versus them. I'm having a little almost like afterword in Culting of America by Rebecca, White Woman Whisperer, about communities versus groups that I think will be helpful for people. Okay. And now, books. Where are my chizoras? This week is my week of doing Spanish content. So I've been reading snippets of Culting of America aloud in Spanish, which I will be releasing it at least digitally and in audio in Spanish and Portuguese. Never you fear, I will not be doing the readings, but I will be doing all kinds of gringa readings of it on my channels. The French theory earrings are not, they're not heavy if you are used to wearing large earrings, is what I would say. No, military not getting involved in politics is a rule. It's called posse comitatus. The military cannot be used on American soil against Americans. Which is literally a rule. And it's in every military branch's code of conduct and the Department of Defense overall that you're not allowed to be political in military uniform. Literal rules. But thanks for the millsplain. I am a teacher. That's what I do every day. I just teach adults. Yeah, there's cases where you can use the military. Like you have to get exceptions to posse comitatus. It has been done before. But again, nothing. As much as they're trying to make this seem like an invasion and an emergency, the courts keep saying, nope. Like what everyone's talking about the military getting involved, that is a military coup. And they would not win because we have a good spy network. And then we would be run by a military junta. And it would never be America again either. So, no. As soon as we, the people, decide that man is no longer the president, then the new person will be able to tell the military to go get him out. Until then, that's not how it works. That's a civilian's misunderstanding of the oath. Yes, we swear to defend against enemies, both foreign and domestic. That doesn't mean we get to choose our own missions. No. There's a hierarchy, there's a chain of command, and machines don't decide when to move, right? You're told when to move. The safety that we have in the way that our military is run, not in a top-down fashion, is that every individual service member has the right to say no to any illegal or immoral order. People often ask me when that's going to start. Like it happens every day. The people who are in charge of the secrets tell their boss know a lot. The people who are in charge of the money tell their bosses know a lot. The people who are in charge of operations tell their bosses know a lot. The people who are in charge of IT tell their bosses know a lot. The people who are in charge of HR tell their bosses know a lot. And the JAG Corps is there to tell commanders no. So like every day that you are alive in America is because the military is operating professionally as a professional force. And Donald Trump is not in charge of that professional force. That is a cult led by an idea. And that idea is the Constitution. But yeah, like as soon as Republicans decide they can impeach him and remove him from office, as soon as Congress wants to, there's a million reasons to remove him. Or maybe there's a way the Supreme Court can do it. Or if not, individual citizens, we can do it. We can all stop paying taxes. We can all stop going to work. We cannot, there's any number of ways. You cannot make 340 million people do anything by force. Absolutely impossible. Especially not with only 2 million service members. We need 100 million soldiers to invade the United States, and you would still probably lose against people on their own ground. Republicans don't have the backbone yet, but people will hit a tipping point. I mean, I feel like this is going to go so badly for the Republicans that I hope they will never rise again. It's amazing how much pushback they're already getting. And they're running out of money. So now they're talking about taxing the rich. I love it. Pete Kegsbreth shilling for feminists, finally making military physical standards equal for women who want to be in combat arms, instead of making laws that women can't do things. We've been telling men to bring it for generations. Oh, I cannot wait for you active duty ladies to just crush them, make them cry, tell them to clutch their man pearls and weep. See, again, with the police force, we go from thinking about our military and the way it operates at a large level, and then we go the police. There's no the police. There are thousands of different municipalities that do not work well together. And federalizing them would take a lot longer than 4 years. And there are also no walls around our cities or states. So you can't do anything. You can't plan for any kinetic mission, is what we call it, like bullets flying mission, without planning for fighters from other states to come in and help those people. And even if the military and the police bound together, even if it was 10 million people, not a chance in hell you can force 340 million people to do anything. We have to come to that moment where we realize, I think it's a middle school moment for y'all, but homeschooled, that like they can't take us all at once. And we, the people, decide who rules us. But I mean, taking jets from Qatar, you know, it's a good way to. I have much Republican family. However, I have also written a memoir. What happens when you spill the family secrets is that you usually don't get invited to the family gatherings anymore. do need more protests and not parades. Yep, this is a new account. It's 4 days old. It's the only account though, so hopefully you all will find me again. It didn't hurt as much closing the 145K account as it hurt closing the 325K account, but here we are. But I mean, in general, way to deal with MAGA family members is understand that like almost never people just like argued out of their cult. Like they have to have their crack in the brainwashing. We buy into our own indoctrination. And really people stay in cults because cults make them feel special. At some point, most people realize that the promise of the cult is a lie. And we usually call that the crack in the brainwashing. And then from there, like once they've had the crack, you can be very, very helpful, especially in like, let's say for especially like white women right now, work on how to talk about what broke the brainwashing for you, even if you were never MAGA. What broke your white supremacy brainwashing? What broke your belief that America was just an uncomplicated, good country, right? And then use that to help people. Doing this. Keep cutting them open upside down. Oh no, you just stacked that box upside down. Okay, that makes me feel better. But yeah, I just think one channel at a time because it just I can get up and monetized in 3 days. So gives them less reason to hate me. And YouTube is where I do my long videos. Once a week on my weekly cult report. Weekly cult situation report. La Luz del Mundo is definitely a cult. I want to say that I just did a 2-hour podcast in Spanish on a podcast called Voces. And I think she was from La Luz del Mundo, the woman who interviewed me. And again, la, that's the. Calling herself la, lo, a, o in Portuguese. Culty. Who is it? Gosh, some comedian. He was like, what's up with First Baptist churches? Oh, Josh Johnson. He's like, you have multiple First Baptists in one town. One of you is lying. I mean, there's a bunch of TikTok specific cults, like these dance cults. It was like called 2M something. There's a documentary about it. Internet is interesting, right? Cults rely on isolation. And so the internet has been the end for a lot of cults. And I think it's happening with Mormons right now, but it also creates new kinds of ways to get to people. And then algorithmic radicalization is such a thing now that it has its own wiki page, which is, the desire is to keep you on the channel. And it turns out that extremism keeps you watching. And so you just get more and more extreme. I just read about they're using Roblox to get children into white supremacy. That's a big argument in my house right now. One golden ticket. Today and tomorrow, Knitting Cult Baby's acting in the play for her school, Willy Wonka. She's an Oompa. I lost my whole video on the cultiness of Willy Wonka. Maybe I'll do it after I see the play. So if they do the play 4 times, then we're going to see it on Friday night and Saturday morning. Or Saturday at noon. So I can't go more on roadblocks. I can't even remember where I was reading that at right now, which is not usual for me. Roblox, it's a video game that like the third graders are obsessed with. TTYL, ta-ta for now. TTFN, but you know. Oh, also, Tigger is definitely the cult leader of the 100 Acre Wood, right? He like makes up a name for himself, then tells you he's the only one. I'm pretty sure Christopher Robbins, the skinny white woman. Rabbit is like the cult uncle, like the second in command lieutenant who's always trying to like run around and fix things up after the cult leader. Pooh, of course, is just the cult joiner. It's the whole thing. Cult is not just the new term for a group of people. Cult is pejorative and has been since Manson and Jonestown. And my definition of cult includes coercion, manipulation, and exploitation of labor. And this I get from cult expert Dr. Janja Lalich, who says cults are always about labor. If it's not manipulating you in order to take your free or reduced labor, it's not a cult. It's just a group and you're having a good experience, and that's fine. Cults harm the individuals. It doesn't just mean like, ooh, I'm having a fun experience. Like, that's just an Eras Tour concert. That's actually how I end the book. There's a reason that Hare Krishnas are always recruiting right outside Deadhead concerts, right? You can do things in groups that get you high on other people, that get you syncopating. Large group awareness trainings, EST, Landmark, or anything that ends in Oni Robbins. They use this on purpose. They use these cheap magician cult tricks to make you physically and psychologically feel like you've had these breakthrough experiences so that they will keep giving you their money. Other way around. Yeah. It's not manipulating and coercing you in order to take your labor. It's not a cult. It's just a group. I just don't know that we have many of those in America right now, which is why I titled my book, The Culting of America. Because it's funny, because I have my 10-part definition of cult in a lot of my videos, my shorts that you'll see on here. And people are always like, well, then if that's what makes a cult, every group is a cult. And you know what? There's one group of people that says that to me. And you know what they have in common? They're Americans. What's Oni Robbins? No can give you more than that. Some people like to sue. I probably didn't do that Kendrick Lamar reference right there. I did not know that Roblox operates off the free labor of minors. Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to put, for example, the famous woo-woo lady's name in my book, but in my musical, like 16 cult members are coming out, getting on a chessboard. The woo-woo lady that comes out is going to be in a crochet version of Bjork's swan dress in teal. Sue me for that. This is why art is fun. And if you know how to take your art and package it as a product, you can make enough money to live on it. I'm trying to write a famous writing routines essay about that right now. Oh no, Tony Robbins definitely a guy that uses all the guru tactics, even though he named his special "I'm Not Your Guru." He definitely is and wants to be. He's also just that genre of like, can we just stop being like, oh, he's not an asshole. He just gives it to you like it is, just to excuse people for being jack faces. Like, and he got Me Too pretty badly, I believe. But, you know, he goes on because he has a cult following. Yes, I like symbolism. And I'm having fun with my earring names. Like, I'm just calling some of them like Transcendental Trickery. These ones are called Bread and Butterflies in my shops. No, I didn't say Tony Robbins, a motivational speaker, is a cult. Tony Robbins is an individual. A cult is a group. LGATs, large group awareness trainings, use cult tactics, which is why cult scholars have been warning about them since 1995, when Margaret Singer, not Margaret Singer, got sanctioned by the APA for saying that they use cult tactics, which is very much like military colonels telling the intelligence officers to show their work and then 10 people not coming home. We all now know that Margaret Singer was right and that they use cheap magician tricks, cult tactics, to make you feel like you've had big, important spiritual breakthroughs. And I have a whole bunch of this in my book, which comes out January 20th, the 1-year anniversary of us all living in this here cult, which we call Trump's America. I was never going to stay in the military for a whole career. Specifically joined to get military intelligence training, pay back my debt to America, do 3 years and bounce. Instead, I did 6.5. But you have to read the book to find out why. You can get signed copies of that in my shop. I mean, I know Freemasons are a cult, just like I know Opus Dei is a cult, but like they're so old and accepted and secretive that you don't hear that much about them. And I think with Freemasons, because their victims are men and men don't like to share, you don't hear that much about it. You haven't been in a group in your life. Yeah. You know, someone was asking me if there are people that because they hate groups so much are immune to cults. And I don't even think so, because you can have a 1-1 cult, right? So unless you're never going to be in a relationship with another person, you can still like fall prey to coercive control. However, I think there is a group of people that are not the opposite of immune. That are not susceptible, highly susceptible to cults. And that is people that are just perfectly happy with their life the way it is. They're not trying to answer big questions. They're not trying to change the world or do things. They're just happy. And I think also, like, that's not to say, like, don't help yourself, don't ever try to get big, or don't follow life's big questions. But number one, know that having a little bit of a gratitude practice can really help you not be as influenced by cults, because cults are weaponizing your discontent. But also that in spaces of personal transformation, predators show up, right? Colleges have always been favorite hunting grounds for cults who want you young, military who wants you young, corporations who want you young, right? To build you in their image. Gosh, and you never, because we've decided 18-year-olds are adults and not just still actual children. It's so interesting because we don't realize, I think, often how much of the brain is still forming until we're 25. But when children experienced a different culture as children, like lived overseas for a significant amount of time, third culture kids, right? There's a very specific reaction you have when you get to like interact with that culture, right? So like when I get to go to a Brazilian steakhouse, there's just a certain level of excitement, right? And I just watched that in Mr. Knitting Cult Lady at a Korean barbecue place that opened up here recently, Honey Pig. And he was stationed in Korea when he was like 19 and 20, or maybe 20 and 21. And just like, that's literally like part of his soul and his like individual culture, in ways that I think we don't think about. Just like when you go to college at that age, right? It like makes you part of who you are. And I think that's interesting about the military too, right? So like my basic training class, because I went in summer, the average age was 17. There were still kids going back to high school after basic training and finishing high school and then joining. Lots of them just never go back. But so my husband signed the paperwork at 17, right? Stayed for 20 years. He's very Army. I signed the paperwork at 22, much less Army. Danielle, my best friend, didn't join the Army until she was 25. Yeah, her 25th birthday was like one of our first days of basic training. She's the least soldiery, military out of all of us, even though she's the one who's still active reserve. Although I think she's done now. I feel like she's actually out.
She's time to not be in the Army.
Coming by today at some point. So yeah, that is my spiel on cults and spaces of personal transformation. I mean, America will be okay. Like, the country's not going to just end. It's going to be different. It's already different. I think
for a generation, for sure.
I think America, Free America ended, what was it? The Super PAC case.
Citizens United?
Yeah. Like Patriot Act plus Citizens United. I think pretty much wraps us up to the 250th anniversary of America being, well, democracy lasted for 250 years. We'll see. 250th birthday of the U.S. Army is on Mr. Trump's birthday, in the most awful coincidence maybe ever. Yep, June 14th, Obama Appreciation Day, as we now call it. Especially people who are assigned masculine identity in addition to whiteness. So many partners have expected me to be there, everything. Yeah. Rome didn't end when it became an empire, it just wasn't a republic anymore. And I kind of feel like it never ended. It's just now the Vatican. So, you know, there you have it. It's interesting because I studied empire and governance in Germany in college. Yes, I know, my life's too perfect. I remember like there's this like triangle theory of empire, which basically is like empires last about 200 to 250 years. And in doing so, in expanding their empire, they then become too large. And then they're spending most of their energy maintaining empire. And then the others can come up and be bigger than them because they're not maintaining. And then the world shifts. And like, I didn't grow up in America. So I have always thought the like, we are the best was just very ethnocentric and gross. And just been like, yeah, like very early on in the Army with Republicans being like, we shouldn't have to pay for college, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fine. Other countries are educating their population now. So like, we're just going backward. And here we are, right? Like, death of expertise is part of why Donald Trump is president, because we demonized education for so long while other countries were just taking care of their people and advancing. Yeah. I was in Germany where I started studying America's decline, basically. And we followed a pretty good pattern. But I think everyone is so focused on we're going to be 1930s Germany. And of course, we're not. There's too many huge, significant differences. But like dictatorship Latin America is right there. It's right there. We're already halfway there. My post office just closed the other day until further notice. Post office very connected to our freedom. That's why it's in the Constitution. And that's why old Frumpy has been going after it since day one. Oh my gosh, y'all. I read a meme on Instagram that was like, why didn't Trump just get into being a drag queen? He would have killed at House of Yes. So good. What comes next? I mean, this is kind of what I've been saying is like I grew up in Brazil recovering from a dictatorship. Like I think we're going to see the housing crisis gets worse, which means we're going to see slum villages start to pop up because at some point people just have to organize. In these slum villages, you're going to see lots of gangs and violence that cops kind of cannot really touch because they become their own little worlds, just like the favelas in Brazil and the slums in India. We're going to start seeing walls going up around fancy houses and fancy neighborhoods. The number one most shocking thing to me about landing in America when I was 14 coming from Brazil was you just had nice big houses on the street. You do not see that in Brazil. You do not see that in South Africa. When you have large wealth disparities, like your little castles where you're stockpiling your food right now, not protected. We can smash windows and get right in, right? So people start putting up walls around things. While I was growing up in Brazil, they were topped with glass bottles. But as I was leaving in the 2000, they were changing them out for electric wiring, right? We're going to start seeing our social services just going away. Like you still cannot get a package to Brazil through their national post office. You have to go through pay. And they still might have to pay a bribe to pick it up on their end. I also was a teenager in Mexico where like all the children get to talk about the cops and all the adults carry money in there with them when they drive to bribe cops. You know, like this is where we're headed, I believe. What's the bright color comment? That's white supremacy? I don't know if that's a comment I made or a comment somebody else made. Remember when you see bright colors, it means they're extremely toxic and poisonous. Yeah. That is true. Sounds nice to say, but no. 1 week in the tropics will teach you that there are bright colors everywhere in nature, poisonous and non-poisonous. And only in America's version of white supremacy do we think good women should be quiet, skinny, and a light shade of beige. You don't leave before it happens. 340 million people can't leave. This has always been the work of America. Y'all, fighting against conservatism and fundamentalism has been happening since the Constitution was created. Like, this is the work. We all have to get more politically involved because fundamentalists have stolen our country and are trying to do things with it that none of us want to live with. But like, maybe we're going to fight back. I hope we're going to fight back. Right now, we're still letting our checks and balances do their things, and they're doing pretty well. Yeah, and also you can't just move places. Well, I mean, legally. You can't just move places legally, but you can, with an American passport, live abroad pretty much for as long as you want right now. I know this because I was snuck into many, many, many countries around the world as I was being trafficked by an international cult. Yeah, I think we have, right? So that's the other thing I think was the end of America was billionaires. You know, like people now have more money than countries. People can hire armies. Like we now have techno-feudalism. Like this is what we're in. When I was studying intelligence 15 years ago, the largest disaster in the world was the internet going down. And now our overlords can just turn it off, right? They showed us that with TikTok. Oh, yes, and you need a passport. I'm doing my passport now. We'll see. I don't think it actually matters whether you as an individual have a gun or not. And I'm more anti-guns, so, I mean, but the thing is that, like, for military operations, right, for any government operations, they have to assume that every American home is armed. Which is why I say it doesn't matter. Like you stockpiling individual weapons, not going to help you at all. The fact that we all, as a shared nation, it's like herd immunity. Like America has 500 million firearms, right? We couldn't even win in Afghanistan where they only had 85 million people, and we were assuming that each home had one AK, right? So own a gun if you think you want to shoot someone. But yeah, it is. And it's funny because it's like the opposite of, you know, in peace times or whatever, I'm like, preppers are ridiculous, right? Because on your own, it doesn't matter how much you stockpile. Like you're not holding up against the United States Air Force from their chairs. But they can't get all of us. Right? And you have to, because there's no easy way to tell who is what, right? Obviously, they know with blue hair that I'm a liberal, right? But also with blue hair, they can't hear me. So I'm an excellent spy. This is the new main. This is the new only, so it should be easy. The other one has been shut down. Yeah, people don't win insurgencies. Like, we're not going to wear uniforms. We're not going to fight them the way they want to be fought. The analogy I use in Uncultured, which is also going to be in the musical, is it's like you're playing a game of chess in America is checkmate in one, or checkmate in one. And then the insurgents pull out gasoline, douse the thing, light it on fire, and like, oh, I kept you from beating me. Didn't follow any rules of the game, but you didn't checkmate me. And if you just don't fight America the way they want to be fought, that's how it works. That's how people with no air assets beat the people who own the skies. So, yeah, no, it's not easy to come after. And like the military does one shot on against Americans, like we, the people, would win decisively pretty quickly. So that's like this thing to remember, right? And it's not downplaying the seriousness of what is happening, right? Like I've been doing this since 2015 because this is serious. But like, here we are. They're taking shots at us every day. But like the size of our country, the non-controllability of it, huge difference between Russia and America. We don't have a Siberia. We don't have a part of the country where if you just get pushed off into, you are gone. That's in Canada. We have 4 giant borders, I believe 4,000 miles of borders that cannot be secured, unlimited points of ingress and egress, 2 very easily accessible oceans that cannot be monitored, and so many miles of train lines that you can't possibly even think about protecting all of them. Like, I don't think they're going to get to full dictatorship, but only because of size and logistics and because they're really bad at it. You know, like I feel like he wants to be full dictator. He wants his name to be said in history with the gravitas of these other dictators. And I think it's just going to be said with complete derision because he just like acted like a cartoon the whole time and he's miserably failing. Like they're so bad at it. The train lines are inadequate for our needs in the modern standard, but if I was hypothetically writing a dystopian novel with an 18-year-old girl who was going to save the world, she would be tearing up train lines. It really goes on in his brain. I mean, he studies dictators. He's studied dictators his whole life. And this is true of every cult leader, right? Like when I say I'm an expert on bad guys, like I grew up hearing about Rasputin, Gaddafi, and Castro, and these others, like the way y'all heard about Abe Lincoln or whatever, right? Like I know that the IRS was the one who got Al Capone because our cult leader taught us that so that we could better work around financial monitors in countries, right? So like if you, look, logistics is always where you're going to take it down, right? Every time. People are like, oh, my favorite is when they're like, oh, they would just do it from the sky. Yeah. And then those pilots would have to land and get gas from a country and then they would have to go home. And then they would have to operate around Americans. Logistics every time. Every time. So that's how you ask back. What did Jim Jones study or obsess with? I mean, Jim Jones was developing his skills of manipulation since the age of about 3, definitely by 5. He was preaching Pentecostal style, practicing in front of any audience he could. He grew up threatening his best friend with guns all of the time. And I believe he learned his original cult stuff from his mom, Lynetta Jones, who was... And in my novel series, Daughters of God, my great-grandmother character is Reba McEntire's Fancy meets Lynetta Jones. He was very charismatic. I mean, all famous cult leaders are charismatic. If you don't understand, that just means you are not under their spell. And there's a very, I feel like, true statement that the one story that Hollywood cannot tell is a cult story. Because if they do it right, you don't get it because you fell for it. Right. And that's why I think cult babies are always uncomfortable with any definition of cults because there's just this je ne sais quoi part of it that is like, it's just normal. It's just normal when you're there. The best way I figured out how to say it is this group behavior concept that humans will do almost anything to fit into their voluntary groups. And that was the idea I wrote Uncultured based on. Like I can show you that in a micro system of this extreme cult and then in the American army. Oh, I could teach you how to shoot, but I just don't have the time. Yeah, the bright colors are fun. Your daughter's a fan. She got some earrings she wants now. Well, there's a bunch in the shop. You can literally just buy them off of me. Don't worry, everything gets steamed and cleaned. And you can't buy the top because this is why I go to thrift stores. What can the military do? The military can say no. That's what they can do. Nobody can make an individual soldier do anything that is illegal according to the laws of war or is immoral. And those soldiers get to decide. And every pilot gets to choose not to fly on any given day. They can just be like, nope, doesn't feel comfortable. So, like, not only do I think they will, I think they are doing it every day. The people in the military say no to their bosses every day. It's actually a fun part of our jobs. Come here. Like when the whole Hillary Clinton thing was going on and all these self-righteous veterans were just lying and being like, if I had done that, I would be in jail. I've been ordered to do illegal things with classified information by every single person I have ever worked for. So like, but also we say no a lot. This is style. He's a Republican. It's gonna be time for us to go. We gotta have therapy soon. Oh, and I'm gonna do a sauna. And give myself the rest of the week to relax. I've been writing a book for 5 years. I've read 2 books for 5 years. He used to hate being on camera, but now that he's a Republican, he's like going on camera more. He's just demanding a makeup station. And like, if you saw my counter, you would realize that we don't have that space for that. But he does go on about it. And on and on and on. All right. I'm going to have to go soon. And so I will bid you adieu. Go check out my shop if you're interested. As I make thousands of scarfigans this summer, I'll probably be listing some, which is a much cheaper way to get it than commissioning it. His main Republican belief is just hating other dogs for existing. Like his personality is just my MAGA father-in-law. Like he's always blaming Obama for everything that's going on in his house. And like, we're Obama's fans in this house. We have his coin. We wrote a chapter of a book called Mr. President, We're Not Lesbians. And like, we specifically ordered a liberal puppy. I also feel like he's a little bit racist. And we live in Maryland, so that's not great. What will be the next superpower? Probably China, just because of size. Russia don't got it. Russia's too busy being evil. But also, probably against Spain. His family had it done to himself. Yeah, people were asking me today if Maryland's a cult. And I'm like, I don't know. I think like they love the flag, but we have a pretty flag. Like Brazilians love their flag too, because they have a gorgeous flag. Texans love their flag, and their flag is super ugly, and Texas is kind of a cult. Not even kind of. I mean, Texas. But I think it's funny when people are like, oh, the military, and like they couldn't even take Texas. They couldn't even take one single state, like much less the whole country at the same time. People with MAGA parents with children that can't change their mind. It's hard, but again, like you can ultimately talk someone out of a cult, but there's no formula. Like we don't know how to engineer it. There's a book called Rising Out of Hatred by Eli Saslow, and it's about Derek Knight, who was the heir to white nationalism. And it's this, you see this 4-year process of his friends in college, like de-culting him with almost no sign that it was working for like 3 of the years, I would say, and we did that book twice in book club now. We're moving on to a new list, but it shows like, and I recommend it to people to be like, do you want to commit to that work? I mean, that is the work that we white people need to be doing right now. It's like cracking people's brainwashing, but like it's hard and you have to be in the sewer with them for a certain bit of it, and that's really hard too. Do Children of God still exist? That's going to be my last question. The answer is yes, but like not the way it was before. So Children of God started in 1968, right? And by 1972, they're reporting 30,000 people. It kind of stabilized as an army of 10,000 members for 50 years. And there's estimated over 100,000 people like went through some form of membership in the Children of God. My grandfather has run the money almost the whole time, along with his several years older than him boss, who impregnated his 14-year-old daughter. Is my father older than my grandfather? Yes, and that is sex cult math. And shockingly, the two men who managed the money were never fired, but everyone else, right? Firing, you're moving the leadership all around. And the Children of God had one of the successful transfers of cult of personality leadership, but I don't think they did. His wife had been identified for decades as his successor. She still to move very fast. Game of Thrones, secure it all. I think the crack started and it took them another decade, but in about a decade, they were kind of done. And the way cults end is when they fail to keep or recruit the next generation. And that's what happened. And I think in large part, that was because of the internet. Before the internet, the first children who grew up were so isolated from the world that they mostly stayed in, or at least stayed in until my mom stayed in until she was 39. And she had the same internet access and everything. But, I left at 15. So there was a difference there. In 2009, they pretty much, you're going along fine, you're going along fine. And then they just hit this tipping point where like their population is aging into dying and getting really sick and not pounding the streets for them every day as beggars for God. And the children aren't staying. And so, the last time I had a source get me their year-end report, it was in 2021, which was during COVID, and they had about 1,400 members, and they're still bringing in $1 million a year, so probably 5 to 10 in non-COVID times. But like the communes of Children of God, the hierarchical structure, the 10,000, like that doesn't exist anymore. And they just literally in 2009, they were like, okay, so Jeebus called us and said that maybe he's not coming back in our lifetime. So all that stuff we told you not to do, like not put your kids in school, not work real jobs, like JK, but we'll be here for your tithe. And so they've created this interesting population that we call the never lefters, right? Because they were in a cult and they were culted for so long. But then the cult fell apart without them. Sorry, I just need to help someone break into my account right now. So they still like in their minds, like my dad is one of these. Like he left because my mom was leaving, and they've been married for now 25 or 30 years or something. Yeah. But he continued to work for them for like a decade and, just kind of, I'm here, Allie, because I'm so bad at getting off, but also because the only thing I have to do today is therapy and go in my sauna and pick my kid up from school and sign these books and stuff. And I'm enjoying the relaxing of my brain and the conversation with people. And plus, I just want to get followers.